We're proud to welcome you to the Exceptional Advisor podcast series brought to you by the Investments in Wealth Institute. The goal of this series is to help you better serve your clients, differentiate yourself from the competition, and enhance your ability to communicate those differences. The Institute is a professional association, advanced education provider, and standards body for financial advisors, investment consultants, financial planners, and wealth managers who embrace excellence and ethics. Through our events, continuing education courses, and acclaimed certifications, which include the Certified Investment Management Analyst, Certified Private Wealth Advisor, and Retirement Management Advisor certifications, we deliver Ivy League and practical education for investment and wealth professionals. Hi, I'm your host, Bob Powell. I serve as the editor of the Retirement Management Journal, which is published by the Investments in Wealth Institute, and I also serve as the editor of Retirement Daily, which is published by The Street. Today, my guest is Larry Jacobson, founder of Bowie Coaching, author of The Boy Behind the Gate, and the creator of the Sail into Retirement course. So, welcome to the Exceptional Advisor podcast, Larry. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you. Great to be here, Bob.
So, it is great for you to be here. And before we get going, Larry, for the benefit of our listeners who may not be familiar with you and your work, do you mind giving us a little snippet of your life story?
No, absolutely. Let's see. It all started when I was 13. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, Let me fast forward a little bit. Um, I had a business career of 20 years running a marketing company in nationwide, but I was based here in California, and most of our clients were Silicon Valley clients. And after 20 years and ending up as CEO, I decided 20 years was enough. And so I sold the company, bought a sailboat, and spent the next 6 years sailing around the world. And that was fantastic. I made my dream come true. I had been dreaming of since I was 13 years old, actually, when I first learned to sail. And when I came back, I wrote a book about it, a memoir called The Boy Behind the Gate. There's the first plug. And it's an award-winning 5-star Amazon #1 actually. So very actually proud of that. And then I got on the speaking circuit and started speaking about the trip. And then one day I got a call from a friend of mine who was a CEO, and he wanted some coaching. And so I went in and helped him out on some issues that he was having. And then he told someone else, and then he told someone else. And next thing I knew, I was coaching CEOs. But I realized that they weren't really asking me for business advice. They were asking me for life advice. And down to the last one, they all asked me the same question, which was, how did you leave being a CEO to go sailing? And what am I going to do when I retire? And I realized that if everybody's asking the same question, there must be something to this. So I started Bowie Coaching, and now I coach executives and others, anybody really, who is looking to figure out what they're going to do with the rest of their life.
So in my role as editor of Retirement Daily at The Street, and in my role as journalist since 2003, and writing almost exclusively about retirement, there are few questions that I get that are that revolve around this issue. Everyone has figured out, in some cases, the money part, but they haven't figured out necessarily what they are going to retire to. And the question I get asked quite a bit, and I'm sure the question that our advisors who are listening to this program get from their clients is, help me figure out what to do next when I retire from my primary career. Otherwise, I may not be retiring because I know what I'm retiring from, but I can't quite figure out what I'm retiring to. And
Right. And it's what when I ask someone, well, what are you going to do with your time when you retire? It's a very common answer to hear, well, I'm going to sleep late, travel, and play golf. And I say, okay, well, that's great. Call me in a year. And uh, everybody does because you can only play so much golf. And while it's pleasurable, you get, wonderful pleasures and satisfaction from all of those things, traveling and golfing and even sleeping late on occasion. but you're missing purpose. Because when we were in our careers, we were needed, we were valued, we were respected, we were important, we were somebody. Our name might have been on a door to an office or something. When we retire, well, then who are we? And that loss of identity is difficult for a lot of people as they're searching for what to do next. And a lot of different factors play into that process of finding what they're going to do next.
Mm. So obviously, in your new career, your new profession here, you've developed some resources. One of the things I should mention is that you did speak most recently at the Investments and Wealth Institute Retirement Management Forum conference and delivered. I was in the audience, delivered an incredible and inspiring speech about how people can figure out what to do next in life. And you have I guess it's best to describe it as a formula, but you've also developed courses and supporting material. So happy to talk about the course that you developed or the elements of the course that will help people figure out what to do next.
Sure, absolutely. The course I developed is called Sail into Retirement, keeping with the nautical theme, and it is a it's an online interactive video course that has 9 different modules, and these are the 9 steps that I believe it takes to go through this decision making process of finding out what you're going to do next. There are 18 videos, there's an action guide that goes with it, and it's pretty much a self guided course. It takes you from what the heck am I going to do with my life all the way through to, oh, now I have a plan. And now, not to scare people, oh, wow, I need a plan for the whole rest of my life. Really, what I tell people is, start with having a plan for today or tomorrow. What are you going to do when you wake up tomorrow? And plan that ahead, and that gets you into that mode. So some of the tools that I use in the course, and I'll go through maybe the different modules in a second, but some of the tools I use, one of them is called the formula, and it's a formula to find your encore. And real simply, basically, what you do is you take your vision, like what it is that you can vision yourself doing, which really is what you want, what you have always wanted to do. You add that to your passion, which is what you like to do on a regular basis, or what you would like to do. And then you think about adding that to your skills, knowledge, and wisdom, which is what you have. That's the skills and knowledge and all the wisdom that you've earned from your career, perhaps, and just from your life in general. You kind of add those up, and you come up with your encore. And you can change, of course, the different elements of this formula and see what different answers you come up with. So that's one thing. And I want to remind the audience that uh, all of these tools that I'm mentioning are going to be available to them um, online, so they don't have to really write them down. But the as I mentioned, vision, and this is of the 9 modules that I take somebody through in the course. Visioning is the first one, and it's important that when to distinguish, when people think of visioning, they look at a picture, perhaps, of something happening, and just something I can teach right now, which is when you're visioning, put yourself in that picture. So you don't see like you're looking at a painting, you put yourself in that painting and see, how does that feel? What does that look like? Does that feel good to you that you're in that scene? So that's something about visioning. And of course, then once you have a vision, an objective, you need to set goals. And that's part of the plan. What are the steps that are going to be needed to make that vision happen? So those are the first 2 modules.
So let me interrupt for a tiny second. When I think about visioning, and when I was going through your course, one of the hardest things, and I don't know if it's common or not, but this notion of I've developed visioning statements for in my workplace or for nonprofits, but less so for myself, right? And do you find this to be one of the hardest things that people have to deal with is trying to sit down and really come up with a vision since maybe the only vision that they had was earning lots of money or acquiring, great sums of net worth or whatever it might be.
I have clients who are CEOs and have written dozens of business plans in their life. And to them, they can do that in their sleep. And they've written mission statements for their companies, just like what you're saying. And then I asked them, well, now what about you? And they freeze. It's like, what? I don't. How do you do that? And that's where I teach. Yes, you've got to put yourself into that. There's another tool that's in the course, and that also is going to be available to the listeners here, and that's the passion quiz. Because the most difficult part of the formula for most people is not what I want, it's not what I have, but it's what I like. Okay, so maybe you like to play golf, but what else do you like?
Mm.
What are the hidden passions that you have always wanted to do? And so there's in the course and on in these gifts is the passion quiz takes you through about I think it's about 30 questions or something like that that keeps asking you deeper and deeper questions that elicit answers. And then once you're done with it, you look back at the passion quiz and you look for patterns. Did I mention the same thing twice on any of the answers? Maybe I mentioned the same thing 3 times. Or what was that thing that I've always wanted to do? Always wanted to ride horses when I was a kid. Well, wow, that is a really hidden passion that if you're living in the city is gonna take some steps to
Mm.
make happen.
So as I look at the passion quiz, it is roughly, I think, 17 or so pages long. It is not an insignificant amount of investment for someone to go through this. I mean, obviously the reward will be great, but this is a bit of introspection, I think, that is required in order to actually sort of focus in on the thing or things that would drive you, right? Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, and the point there is well taken. That it's easy to ask the questions. Everybody asks themselves, "Gee, what do I like? What is my passion? What do I want to do?" But very few people actually answer the questions. And to actually sit down and answer the questions, it could take you 10 minutes to go through this passion quiz, or it could take you a week. It depends how deep you want to go. What I recommend is that people do is go through the passion quiz quickly the first time. Maybe take a half an hour and just do a little visioning and start answering the questions as fast as you can. Then set it aside. Go through the next module, perhaps, of the course. Come back to the passion quiz and answer it again. And it's a work in progress, but you'll start to see these patterns that develop as you go through it. But you kind of have to do the work. I can try to pull the answers out of you, and that's what I do with my coaching clients who need help on this. But it's inside everybody that you just have to sit down and actually take the time to answer the questions.
Right. Okay. So I interrupted your flow there. You
No, oh, no. There's no such thing because it's how our brains work, right?
right.
um, well, anyway, it's okay. So, and now I'm talking about having a specific passion here. This is what we've been talking about for a couple of minutes now. What is it you really want to do? Well, that's on the one hand. On the other hand, the happiest retirees are those who have a well balanced life. So, in other words, yes, you have a passion. You love to do one particular thing. Let's say it's painting or something like that, and you're creating art, and that's what you really want to focus on. But the happiest people are the ones who also include other elements of their life as part of their plan. And so, to that, I have in the course and online something that's called your retirement wheel. And I think once I give the website, people will be able to go to this and just download it instantly, and it's there for everybody. But let me just briefly describe it. So if you could picture a wheel, in fact, it's easy to do. You just draw a circle. So that's the wheel. and then you divide it and you draw 8 lines. So you divide it into 8 pieces because there are 8 pieces to this wheel. In the center of the wheel, you put a dot, and right next to that, you put a 1, and then you number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out to the edge of the wheel. So you're going to rate yourself on how you are doing in 8 different categories, 1 through 5. And then you connect the dots and you see how well balanced is your wheel. Would you go down the road going bumpity, bumpity, bump, or is it smooth? And so let me just briefly mention the categories. The first one that's at the top of the wheel is called sharing and mentoring. And my happiest clients are those who are doing some sort of sharing or mentoring in their lives. The next one is recreation, because that's just something that's for you. That's playing golf and having fun. The next one is health. So we don't want to ignore our health as we get older. In fact, we want to pay more attention to it. The next one is financial. And boy, I'm not going to even have any advice here in the financial area, Bob. In fact, the only yeah, exactly. I think the only mention of finances in the course is to get a good financial planner, and also to recognize what your limits are. If you want to have a lifestyle where you live in a castle in Spain, well, can you afford that castle? If not, well, then maybe you don't. Maybe it's not a castle that you live in. The next one is travel, explore, and learn. And again, some of my happiest clients are those who are going. When I say going back to school, doesn't necessarily mean actually going to school, although some do. I have some retirees who are going back getting another degree, a master's degree, but exploring, traveling, learning. You can take a community college course. You can take an online course. You can get a certification in all kinds of different things. The next one is relationships. This is important, as it doesn't mean your own spouse or partner relationship necessarily, but your relationships with multiple people and groups that you belong to, and your faith-based or community groups or sports teams or your spouse or partner. And then the next one is work. The next category is work. And for a lot of people, work is very satisfying. I mean, I'm supposed to kind of be retired, I guess, but I love my work. I love writing. I love being on the public speaking circuit, and I love helping others. And so I can't imagine a life where I'm just sitting on the beach. I mean, I can picture it, and what I see in the visioning of that is
Right.
me pacing back
Right.
and forth, going,
Right.
"Gee, what should I do next?" And that's just my personality is that my contentment is derived from achievement, from doing something, and for the most part, that doing something I've identified is helping other people make their dreams come true.
Right. So when I've addressed this issue of working in retirement, oftentimes people say, "Well, I don't necessarily need the money." So there's working for income, be it out of need or want, but there's also work where you might not get paid, right? Many people go into the nonprofit world and volunteer, right? And that's work, but it's not necessarily for income, right? It's for personal satisfaction or to achieve some sort of right.
Absolutely, it's for the purpose of helping an organization, helping other people. Um, uh, One of the big things is that with respect to our work, and for the planners who are listening, you've earned a lot of wisdom in your career. And what's going to happen when you're gone? Is that just going to disappear, or are you going to somehow share that and pass it on and help other
Mm.
people with that earned wisdom? If we could put all of our wisdom into a chip and then pass it on, it would be great. But we can't do that. I think that was on Star Trek one time or something.
It might have been, and it might be coming too. We're not done yet, right?
Yeah, it could be absolutely. Um, yeah, I'd like to borrow somebody's actually. um, there's one more category, and that is social and family. And So there's a lot of people who don't have families and your social interactions become your family, and that becomes even more important when you retire. And that's because so much of our social lives revolves around our work and the people that we know at work. And then so one day you're not working anymore, and it's like, well, God, I'm not getting any phone calls, and I really have nothing to talk to anybody about, and so you start to feel lonely. That can cause depression. You start to feel bored, and so it's important to make an extra effort to join groups, belong somewhere, so you feel part of something.
Mm. When I think about this and when I've written about it, it seems like women have an easier time maintaining social connections after they leave the workforce, whereas men sometimes have a more difficult time of that. Right, you're probably familiar with the book "Bowling Alone," where this trend of not joining groups is prevalent. But for men, it's especially hard to form new friendships or start new groups or join groups when they're older. Do you find that to be the case, or?
You're
or
absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and you have to make that extra effort. And there's a lot of research now about loneliness, and um, people. The statistics show that people who live alone die sooner than those who don't.
Mm.
I mean, I'm not going to get into the numbers, but it's pretty dramatic. So if you want to live a little bit longer, hang out with more people. That we're social creatures. We like, yeah. The only place that you really don't want to be social, be with a whole lot of other people is on an airplane, right?
Oh, yeah.
So
Right. I wanna be left alone on an airplane. So when I think about this wheel and I think about the role of advisors, do you see a world in which the advisors use this wheel with their clients just to get a temperature check on how well balanced their client's life is in addition to the financial, or?
absolutely, absolutely, because uh, financial advisors are the first line, shall we say, of defense. They're the ones that clients go to, and you're talking about your money and where it's invested and how it's going to have what return it's going to have. And then, as my financial advisor says, he goes, and the next question out of their mouth is, "Hey, do you think I should move or get divorced or what? All these different questions about what should I do next?" And he told me basically that he gets about 30% of his questions are about that. And so um, the tools that I've developed here, absolutely, your listeners who are planners should use these tools. They can print it out, they can hand it to their client, and they can say, "Here, balance see how well balanced you are, and then next at our next meeting, bring it back to me. And let's have a look." And it doesn't mean they have to become a coach or a life planning coach or a non-financial retirement coach, but it sure will help anybody who looks at this wheel, anybody who takes the passion quiz or who looks at the formula. It's going to give them a start. And then, of course, they also can tell their clients that they can go take the Sail into Retirement course, which is available online, and it's very inexpensive and available to everybody.
Right. So, maybe now would be a good time to mention that folks can go to Larry Jacobson, all one word, .com/, the number five hyphen gifts, GIFTS, and tell folks what they might get if they go to that website.
Absolutely. So, well, it's a special for everybody today, Bob. I always wanted to be a TV announcer like that. My mother said I had a radio voice. So, um,
Same.
now on that site, larryjacobson.com, which is my general website, and there's lots of information there. There's videos, there's written information. But if you go to the secret site, which is larryjacobson.com/5-gifts, then your listeners are going to find these 5 gifts. And the first one is the formula. The second one is the retirement wheel. The fourth one is the passion quiz. The third one is my ebook, which is about 10 pages long, so it's a simple read, but it's the top 5 retirement planning secrets. And they're not really secrets, but it's very telling and discusses some of the things that we're talking about here today. But the 5th gift for your listeners today is a special, and that is a free enrollment in the Sail into Retirement course. So all of your planners who are listening can go to this page. It says easy access to Sail into Retirement. Click here. It's a big green button. All they have to do is click there and then register, and it gives them free access to the entire course. And it's for your planners. Then if they want to recommend it to their clients, it would be nice if people just went to LarryJacobson.com and bought it. But for your listeners, for the planners, it's free.
Great. And I should just let our listeners know that I'm halfway through the course right now, and it's really quite good. It's digestible. It's easy to go through. The hardest part is actually completing the visioning statement, for at least for me. So I've got some
Yeah.
work to do there.
Well,
But
on the visioning statement, and I'm not sure if I say this in there or not, but if you can't really come up with that visioning statement right away, what you can come up with is, my vision is to have a retirement that provides me passion, purpose, and fulfillment. And that could be your temporary vision statement.
good, you solved that problem for me. Thanks.
Glad to. And that's you're not the first. You're not the first to have
All
that.
right. So you said they're not secrets, so I'd love for you to talk a little bit about the top 5 retirement planning secrets.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, okay. The first secret that's now out of the bag. Are familiar with Abraham Maslow's hierarchy of needs?
Mhm.
A lot of us learned about that in Psych 101 in college.
Right.
And it talks about, how at the bottom of the pyramid, we have our physiological needs like food and air and water. And at the top is self-actualization, which is basically having purpose. And that's the secret number 1 is to create a life that gives you purpose, that has purpose in it. It's just critical. There was a study that showed that if you cannot state the purpose of your life after you retire, you have a 56% higher chance of having a stroke
Huh.
than if you can state your purpose.
There's incentive.
Yeah, there's incentive, all right. And also, you have when you retire, you have a 40% higher chance of falling into clinical depression. So these are all things that we're doing to avoid that, to avoid boredom, loneliness, depression, which has turned into a real problem with retirees, and also which leads to alcoholism, drugs, and suicide. Not to be depressing about that at all, but that's why we're talking today, is because these are tools that you can use to avoid those, things. So purpose is number 1. And the second one is, and we touched on this already, at work, you feel valued, respected, you're needed, you're somebody. I always say that, at work, no matter how important you are, you're still a VIP.
Mm-hmm.
And so the second one is to create a life where you feel valued. Now, this doesn't mean every moment of your day. For example, if you were coaching your grandkids' soccer team, you're going to feel valued. It might only be once a week on Saturdays, but you're still going to feel valued.
Right.
And that's going to give you some purpose. And then, you might add something else to that. But, it's like yesterday, my niece called me and she said, "Uncle Larry, can you give me some life advice?" And I said, "Sure, just let me have your credit card number." And, no, I didn't. She got it. She got freebies. But after I hung up, after about an hour with her, she said, "Uncle Larry, you helped me so much." And I tell you, the rest of the day, I was just soaring because I felt valued.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Um, all right. Well, the third one is, and this is an issue for a lot of people, but they may not even know it. And that is mistaking short term pleasures for long term fulfillment. So, short term pleasures means you go to the golf course and you golf, and you felt good about that. A long term pleasure is teaching your nephew how to
Mm,
golf and seeing him sink that putt because you taught him to do how to do that. And so it's important to distinguish that, sure, short-term pleasures are fun and it's great, but if you fill your life with them, you're going to be lacking in some
yeah,
fulfillment.
I think in your course you mentioned you give the example of someone who wants to learn how to paint in retirement, which might be a short-term pleasure, but the long-term fulfillment would be going and teaching kids how to paint, or going into right, and just sort of extending the personal pleasure to something that would be fulfilling.
That's right, and that could even be. I mean, if you're saying you're an amateur artist or painter, and you don't even think your work is that good, but you still want to provide that opportunity for others. Maybe you start a little program in the inner city or something for kids who can't afford the
Mhm.
paint. And what does it what does it cost? A couple $100 or something, and you've provided an opportunity for other people to learn who might have more talent
Right.
than you.
And that's a bit of I wouldn't say it's a push for people, right? But people are going to have to sort of think about how to take what gives them pleasure and extend it, right? That's not maybe something they're thinking about as a natural outgrowth of their activity, perhaps.
That's exactly right. Absolutely. And then some people think, well, gee, I don't want to work that hard. Well, first of all, rewards come from hard work, but also, come on, how hard can it be?
Right.
Right. I mean, you could create a meetup group, and say this is for parents of kids who can't afford art or something. I mean, there's all kinds
Right.
of ways to go.
All right. That's three. Right.
Um, that's three. Okay. The fourth one is taking the time, and we touched on this, to identify your passion and what you really like to do. And it's, for example, the passion quiz. A lot of people who I have handed this passion quiz physically to friends and family who have talked to me about this, and I say, here, fill out this passion quiz and then get it back to me. And I would say 75% just don't want to take the
Right.
time to do that. And I come back and say, but you need to take the time to do that, or you're just going to be sailing around in circles. If you don't have a destination, you're never going to get there.
Right.
Yeah, sailing in circles might be fun for a little while, but kind of gets old.
It does get old. I've done it once, and it wasn't fun either. So, well, that's a story for
Yeah,
another day.
that's yes, right. Well, I'm always happy to talk about sailing. Okay, and then the last one, the fifth secret is to have a plan of action. To have a plan. And as I said, I don't want to scare people off saying, oh my God, you need to have a plan for the rest of your life. But when you think about it, our entire lives, we have had a plan. So if you think about starting at school, we went through elementary, junior high, high school. Then some of us went to college, and some went to the military or an academy or an apprenticeship or whatever. And then we had our career. And then after your career, what's in the plan? There's nothing. When you turn the page, it's like a play, and you turn the page for the script, and it's blank. There's nothing on it because number one, we are living a lot longer than the previous generation, and the previous generation pretty much after retirement, within 5 years, people were pretty much expected to die. Well, now it's 10 to 30 years, and that's an entire lifetime. But there's nothing written on that page of the script for your life. So write the script take an attempt at make an attempt at writing something on that page. So you have a bit of a script. And as I said, it could even just be for tomorrow.
So let me just drill down for a second. I think when we think about people and their aversion to maybe planning, right, to sitting down and thinking about
Right.
this, people will spend more time planning their vacation to Spain than they will on their script,
Yes,
and right. So
that's
how
right.
does one sort of? I mean, obviously
Yeah.
you're capable of creating a plan. You just booked 5 days or 7 days or 10 days in Spain. Um, how do they translate the enjoyment they get from doing that to writing their life script? Is there an easy way to sort of help them get from?
Well, what will help a lot is figuring out what they want to do. So when you figure out what you want to do, then you can come up with, oh, I'm going to need to take certain steps. So, okay, if I want to go to Spain, well, I'm going to have to book an airline flight. I'm going to have to book a hotel. I'm going to have to create an itinerary. I'm going to have to decide what sites I want to see in Spain. So when you're creating a plan for your life, if you decide what it is that you want, then you think, oh, well, what are the steps necessary to make that happen? And it's easier than most people think.
Right.
And I don't really care if it's written on the back of a napkin about what your plan is for tomorrow. Your plan might be to take an hour
Right.
and take the passion quiz and try to figure out what it is you want to do. That's a plan.
Right.
And in order to make that happen, perhaps you need to leave the house. Maybe you need to go sit in a park or go to the library or someplace where it's quiet. So, you can always drill down to what are the steps necessary that I need to take in order to make something happen. So when, sailing around the world, was constant planning and seeing what's next, and then what are the steps necessary to make that happen. And it's a whole lot just like business, and it's a lot like life. And I will tell you that everybody who's listening to this podcast and their clients all have the ability to do this. They've just a lot of them have never thought about doing it or thought that it was necessary. And I say, just start.
Mm,
Just start. Write it on the back of a napkin and say, what am I going to do tomorrow?
yeah. So one thing I want to touch on before we wrap up is, and it maybe you are in a better position than most people to actually talk about this, given that you sailed 40,000 plus miles around the world. Um,
Yes.
is dealing with the fears and doubts that people might have as they think about setting off on this journey. I mean, when you were speaking at the conference, you talked about pirates and giant waves and things that probably would cause lots of fear and plenty of doubt in terms of your desire to sail around the world. But yet you did arrive back and sail under the Golden Gate Bridge to your family and friends.
Yeah. Yes. And fear is the number one obstacle to achieving so many of our own objectives. I mean, there's fear of leaving our comfort zone. There's fear of trying something new. There's fear of going down the wrong path. But it's important that we remember what I teach about fear is that fear is nature's way of making us focus
Mm,
on the task at hand. That's really what it is. It's not something to look on as a negative. It's actually a positive because it's making you focus on the issue. It's making you focus on the problem. And it gives you a heightened awareness and skills. So, if, if you're being chased by a tiger, that
right.
fear is going to make your legs go faster than they've ever gone before. Yeah. And so I would try to stress that retirement is not something to fear. It's not something to be afraid of. It's not the end. It's opportunity.
Mm,
It's the
right.
chance to do. You get a do over, basically. It's a really a key. But I don't tell people not to be afraid. And I don't believe in this, oh, just overcome your fears. You can, they're surmountable and, no, we're all afraid of a lot of things. But if we recognize that the fear is there to help us and that we can use it to our advantage, then I think fear can be embraced in the way it should be.
Hmm. So we've covered a lot of ground, Larry. Are there things that we haven't touched on that you think our listeners would benefit from hearing?
Yes, a lot. There are lots of things that we haven't covered.
We could set a record
But they're
for
pretty
the longest podcast ever if you wanted.
well. I'm hoping that your listeners are going to gain some ideas and skills and the ability to help their clients through the use of these tools. The things that we haven't discussed are in the course, Sail into Retirement, and they can find that at larryjacobson.com and /5-gifts. Or there's also lots to read about on larryjacobson.com about retirement and all the different aspects of things we're talking about. But I do recommend that everybody who's listening, here's your opportunity. Take the course. It's free.
Great.
And it's very valuable, and that will give them more skills to be able to help their clients with.
Yeah, well, I can attest to the value of the course. I'm halfway through it right now as we're speaking, so I can't wait to finish it and report back. Thank you so much. So,
I can't wait to sign your certificate.
all right, Larry, thanks again so much for coming on the Exceptional Advisor podcast. We'll be happy to have you come back on in the near future, and we'll tackle some more subjects.
Excellent. I look forward to hearing from some of your listeners. They can contact me on my website, and I hope everybody's having a great day.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. My guest was Larry Jacobson, founder of Buoy Coaching, author of The Boy Behind the Gate, and the creator of the Sail into Retirement course. If you've enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe through iTunes, Spotify, or our website at www.investmentsandwealth.org/podcast to get the latest episodes of our Exceptional Advisor podcast series. The Investments and Wealth Institute has been helping investment and wealth professionals become exceptional advisors for over 30 years. Please visit our website at investmentsandwealth.org to learn more about our certifications, conferences, online learning, and continuing education programs.